Greetings, friends old and new. It is I, Trinity, your diverse storyteller. Today, we've returned to Wise Women of the Dreamtime for another story from the First Australians. This one is called The Wirreenun Mother and Her Wirreenun Son. So, right up front, Wirreenuns, basically witches, or I guess warlocks. I don't believe that it's gender specific. Then a couple of other things. A Wirreenun, Y-A-R-A-A-N, is a white gum tree. And a Minga, which has come up before, is a spirit tree. And then a Gumar is a new one for us this episode. It is Goomarh. And it's similar to the spirit tree, except you can't be a regular person and have one. It is only for a specific Wirreenun, and it's much more powerful and binding than the tree version is, basically. Also, small trigger warning, it does get a little bit violent. I don't think it's crazy, but you might disagree, so just check the comments for some more detailed trigger warnings so I don't ruin the story. The Wirreenun Mother and the Wirreenun Son. A mother and her son's wife were all traveling together. The wife was not well at the time, and the son said, "You two go straight onto the creek, close to the old Wirreenun. I will go around and get some possums and honey, then meet you there when you get a fire ready." Off he started. His mother and wife went toward the place he had named, stopping every now and then to dig yams until they had a good quantity. The wife was tired and glad indeed when they reached the old Wirreenun. But, tired as she was, she helped her mother-in-law to dig a hole, make a fire in it, put some stones on the fire, then, when the stones were heated and the fire burnt down, lay some leaves and grass on it and then the yams, over which they placed more grass and sprinkled water, then more grass and a thick coating of earth, leaving the yams to cook. While the yams were cooking, they made a bough shade, and the old mother said to the young wife, "You are tired. Lie down here in the shade, and I'll tease your hair. It will take the pain out of your head and make you sleep." The young wife lay down, and the old woman sat beside her and teased her hair, which soon soothed her off to sleep. When the old woman judged from her breathing that she was asleep, she made sure by touching her on the eyes. Still, the girl breathed heavily. Then she touched her mouth. Still, she breathed heavily. Then she touched her nose. Still, she breathed heavily, so she must be sound asleep. The old mother caught hold tightly of both the girl's wrists and, leaning over her, drove her front teeth right into the middle of her face, biting a piece off. The wife woke with a start and cried aloud, but the old mother had her fast. The unstaunched blood poured forth, and the young wife died. The old mother carried her to the creek, where she had a Minga, the spirit tree, for she was a Wirreenun, or witch. In the meantime, the husband, who likewise was a Wirreenun, had a warning that his dear wife was in danger. He determined to be content with what possums and honey he had, and hurried on to the appointed meeting place, feeling sure that some calamity was happening to his wife. As he neared the place, he saw the bough shade. "Ah, they are all right," he said. However, when he reached there, he saw neither of the women. He saw where they had the yams baking. He threw down his own spoils and looked around. He saw a trail of little black ants going to the bough shade. He looked in, and there was blood. He tracked that blood until near the Minga. He then heard his mother's voice, first laughing, then singing. He heard her rejoicing over the good feed of flesh she was having, secure, as she thought, in her hollow Minga. The son felt rage burn within him as he heard her laughing over her victim, his much-loved young wife, who he had hoped would soon be the mother of his son. He went back to the scrub and gathered some pine bark and some bee-briar, or broom brushes. These he carried to the Minga, beside which was a hole. In this hole he crept and then set the bark and brush alight. His mother heard the crackling of the fire under the base of the tree. "My son, it is your mother here, your own mother. Put out that fire." "I will not put out the fire," said the son. "What has my mother done with my young wife? What is she doing with her now?" "But my son, I am your mother. You must care for your mother and save her from burning." Crackle, crackle went the pine bark. The Minga was soon on fire. "I cared more for my young wife. Where is she? Can you give me back my young wife? She who was soon to be the mother of my son? No, you cannot. So burn. Burn!" He poked the fire into a brighter flame, and it crackled again. "But, my son, I know this is a Minga. Evil will befall you if you injure a Minga or anyone touching one. Surely the spirits will kill you. Stay that fire ere it be too late." "No harm will come to me. Only in a Gumar would you be safe from my vengeance, for I, though you knew it not, am also a Wirreenun and a greater one than you. To me, no harm will come. To you only. To you, who killed my young wife, she who is to be the mother of my son. To you who ate her flesh, the flesh of the wife your son loved. Burn! Burn! Burn!" He sang aloud a Wirreenun song. The flames leapt up at the tree, enveloping the mother and the remains of his young wife, which were burned together. Then, with sorrow in his breast for the loss of his young wife, and joy that, though his mother had been a Wirreenun, he had been a greater one, and so able to avenge that loss, he went on his solitary way. The end. This story is probably the grossest one we've covered so far, and as a horror fanatic, honestly, I'm pretty into it. The mental image of that woman just slamming her face into the sleeping face and just biting right through is so gnarly, and I kind of love it. It is important to note that the location of the center of the face is thought to be the location of the third eye, so the mother attacking the young wife in this spot is just really trying to take her down in the physical, the spiritual, just every way possible. And the point of this story, from an Aboriginal perspective, is to demonstrate the importance of severing those close familiar bonds, the parent-child relationship, in lieu of more of a broad community sense. The child isn't supposed to stay as dependent on their family once they reach adolescence, and this story shows you a severe consequence of staying too close to your mother and allowing her to do functions such as cooking that should really be the job of, in this case, your young wife. And by all means, the nightmare mother-in-law trope is not unique to this society. I personally looked out really well. Thank you, Stacey. But some people aren't so fortunate. And it's important to note that since the mom is a Wirreenun in this tale, when she's teasing the girl's hair to soothe her off to sleep, one, her powers actually can take the pain out of the girl's headache. But two, she's been sucking energy out of this poor girl for the entire story, which is why the wife, feels so weak. Continuing on with the theme of nightmare mother-in-laws, in this situation, the son does eventually violently sever ties with his mom entirely, but not in the way that one would probably hope, and he no longer has a wife. So that's unfortunate. He probably should have severed that earlier so that he could have a wife and a mother. I do really like the repetition of the word burn in this story. One, because it was just obviously a lot of fun to say, and two, because it makes me think of like a Norman Bates situation or, other horror movie standards where the son finally snaps back towards the abusive or just overbearing mother and is just like, or burn, burn, burn in this case. I enjoyed that quite a bit. So the question I'd like to explore in the comments this week is, what do you think about standardized or ritualized stages for children to go through adolescence and into adulthood? Obviously in Aboriginal cultures, there are various rituals and ceremonies, dances, things like that. In our culture, in the United States, I would liken it to driver's licenses or the ability to be drafted into war. These are all adult things that are landmarks, although maybe not super fun ones. And then, of course, in smaller cultures around the world and within the United States, because obviously people bring their cultures with them, I think of in Judaism, the bar and bat mitzvah, or for Hispanic people, the quinceañera, which is for girls. And that's all I have for you today. So like, subscribe, please tell a friend. We're almost at 30 subscribers and I'm so excited. And I'll see you in the next one.